What's up, guys, gals, and non-binary pals? My name is Naomi. Welcome to House of Miscellania. Today I'm coming at you with a WIP and chat. WIP stands for work in progress, and I'm going to chat for about an hour. At the very end, I will read a tarot card, which will be our thought for the week. I have them all shuffled and ready to go, but I'm going to set them aside. Let me go through my tools really quickly so that you guys know what's going on. And you've seen many of these before, so it's probably not going to come as any shock to you. These will change pretty soon here, but all right. First and foremost, I am using a pen. This one is from Diamond Pen Pal. This is the Satura pen. I absolutely love it, mostly because this one is a chubby sized pen. Like you can see, it is very, very thick when you compare it to, let's see, this is a more normal sized pen. You can see it is quite large. Love their chubby sized pen. Cannot get enough of it. In my single placer here, I am using dropping it, Ghost from Diamond Painting Daily. Both these can be found on Etsy. There will be links down in the description. If you don't know what that means, just click the bottom of the video. There'll be like a little it'll say stuff at the beginning, and then you just click more and it'll bring down a menu. You can see all kinds of stuff down there, links to really helpful videos, including how to use Ghost. It's like a glue dot. It's a liquid that turns solid. It goes from white to clear, and I love this stuff. I swear by it. Next, I will be using in my multi-placer Purple Prismatic Sparkle Dot Putty from Butterfly Effectwares, also over on Etsy. And then I'm using a tray. This one is from Ephemera 3D. This is the Deep 6. I used this last year for Mary Morales, and you know what? This is honestly one of my favorite trays, so I need to get another one from Ephemera. But oh my goodness, it's good stuff. And then the diamond painting that I am working on is, there was just an unboxing for this one very recently, and I'm apparently sticking into my blue era like nobody's business. This is Enchanted Frost from Jaded Gem Shop. It is by Leoba Bruckner, and it is a 50 by 70. This is one of her pixel charted ones, and this actually, the picture is the pixel charted version. So it's looking amazing so far. I love it, love it, love it. I just started it yesterday. I started it yesterday, and I'm loving it so far. But anyways, now that I am through my tools and what canvas I'm working on, let me go over my week. And as I've told you guys before, it's crazy because it's like feast or famine, right? I either have really nothing going on and I talk a lot about, just mental health or whatever, sobriety, or I have everything happening, and that's sort of what this week was. I've been very busy with lots of different things. Gosh, so let me think. Last week, okay, so I am on what is called medicated assisted therapy in sobriety, which means that there are certain medications when you are sober that would be possibly considered mind or mood altering medication, and they can be for various purposes. Now, that can really be anything from something like methadone, which I'm not on, all the way to even psychiatric drugs like Zoloft or, Geodon, just a regular mental health medication. It is considered mood altering. And so according to like AA or NA, there's different feelings about medicated assisted therapy. Some people agree with it, some people disagree with it, because to some people being on a medication is not being sober. I'm not one of those people. Well, so because I'm on this medication, I have to see a counselor monthly, and then I get my prescriptions, whatever. Well, I get called in for randoms because, that's just a thing that they do to make sure that there's nothing other than your medication in your system. Understandable. And, you really kind of can't fully ever trust an addict if they're behaving in certain ways, whatever. Now, there's different levels of this program. I won't go too far into detail, but, there's like, they require you to see a counselor weekly or bi-weekly and then monthly. And I've been sober for over 6 years now, and so I only go in monthly, but I still have to quarterly go in for a random drug screen. So anyway, all of that being neither here nor there, the only reason I bring it up is because I got called in for a random drug screen, and I don't know what it is. I have this uncanny ability to know exactly when lunchtime is and then to go in at that time. So I ended up going in when everybody was out to lunch, and I had like an hour that I needed to kill. And I walk to my appointments because it's only, I don't know, like 4 blocks from my house. Wait, it's 1, 2, 3 blocks up and then 1, 2 blocks down. It's not far. Anyways, I live right off the downtown. And so I figured, okay, well, it's midday. I'll just go wander around downtown, see what's going on. Well, our downtown for the longest time has just been a slew of basically consignment shops and bars. Like, that's pretty much what we've had downtown. Right now, they're really revitalizing the downtown, which by, effect also has a good effect on our property value. Our property value keeps going up because we are so close to downtown, which is good because a little bit of a story I'm going to tell you in a bit will illustrate that, I don't live in the best neighborhood in my city, but I'll get into that in a little bit. It's actually a pretty funny story. So anyways, I'm going downtown. We have a lot of new stores that are opening, and so I wanted to check some things out. And we have a plant shop that opened downtown. So I went in there thinking, okay, I'll go look and see what they have for maybe Dustin, because, if you've watched for any length of time, you know that Dustin collects every different kind of succulent or cactus. He loves them and collects them, and they are taking over my home and eventually my bedroom. But I'm like, yeah, I'll go see what they have. Maybe they have something that he doesn't already have, which is tricky. But when you find these little shops, generally they'll have, the staple things, whatever. But I thought, okay, maybe I'll get lucky. So I go in, had a really lovely conversation with the woman who owns the place, and actually ended up giving her my phone number because we have a lot of cuttings from a lot of different kinds of succulents and cactuses. And so I thought, okay, I'll give her my phone number in case, somebody's looking for something specific. Maybe we can help them out. Well, I did end up finding 3 different types of succulents that he does not already have. Let me go grab one of them because it's super cool. Okay, I had to back you up a little for this one because I didn't want to bump it into the camera. This one is called a mermaid tail. Can you see why? It's a mermaid tail. And obviously we haven't put it in a new pot yet, but it is actually 2 different types of succulents. This top one is one kind of what's called a euphorbia. And this down here is actually another type of euphorbia it's grafted onto. So it's actually 2 different types of succulents together. They're actually kind of complicated to graft and, get to live correctly. But this one I thought was really cool, really beautiful. It's really big too. I mean, you can see my hand behind it. It's large. I'm going to put it back. One moment. Okay, there we go. It's going to be a whole show and tell kind of day. I have a lot of things to talk about and show you guys. So, yeah, really cool. Loved the plant shop. Thought, oh man, it's nice to see places like that, especially when the downtown honestly has mostly consisted of bars and consignment shops, like, which is great. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a good consignment shop. It's like a thrift store sort of situation. But we had plenty of them. You get tired of just seeing consignment shops and bars. So nice change. Lots of other really cool things downtown, including I'm kind of jumping around in my stories a little bit here in the way that the week went, but that's okay. It'll flow or it won't. The other thing that we had downtown was the No Kings protests that happened this weekend. Now, I'm not going to get political. I'm not going to talk about my political standings or anything like that. But what I will say is that as far as protests go, it is one of the most American things out there. And I may or may not agree with somebody's politics, but I will 100% stand up for anyone's right to freedom of a peaceful protest. I don't think that there is anything wrong with that. But it was cool to see, honestly, regardless of side of the aisle or whatever, for people to be able to, speak their truth and to remain peaceful with it. Because honestly, if we can't all kind of just get over our differences, then we're never going to get anywhere in this country. So it's just nice to see. And actually, what I did see was there were people down there that did want to have an actual conversation. Now, there's always going to be, I think, agitators in any event, like no matter what it is. There's always going to be somebody to have a counter attitude or a counterpoint. But when people can honestly just have a civil discourse, like that's what we need more of, just generally in our world, our whole world. And that goes for literally, because we're a two-party system, that goes for both sides, honestly. But, another thing that, for those of you who are keeping tabs on things, Dustin and I have had a lifelong friend who has been himself struggling with alcoholism, and sometimes he watches my channel, so if you're watching, what's up, dude? That being said, he's struggled for a really long time, and he's making a really difficult choice to get himself some help, and I'm incredibly proud of him. It's been a long time coming, and I'm glad that he was able to make these decisions for himself, because nobody can make those decisions for you. I was having I don't know, like, I think sometimes when you're sober for a really long time, anything over 3 years, I think feels almost like, not, what's the word I'm looking for? It starts to feel a little bit like, I don't know, every day, right? Every day just starts to feel normal, I guess. And it doesn't, like, there's no longer obsession. There's no longer this, just need to practice so much mindfulness about your sobriety. At least that's been true for me. I don't know if that's true for everybody, but I feel like it felt very easy, I guess, easier after 3 years. Well, sometimes I think it's important when you have been in recovery for a long time to just get reminders of how easy it can be to fall backwards, because there's all kinds of temptations out there for people who are struggling with sobriety. And especially for alcoholics, I feel terrible for an alcoholic, because especially in Wisconsin, there's a bar on every block here. There's a liquor store every mile. You know what I mean? And so for me, my DOC was not something that you can just go pick up on the corner and for it to be legal, right? And so it's nice sometimes to have reminders of, why we stay sober, and then what being newer in sobriety felt like and what it looked like, because you can get complacent, you can get too comfortable, I think, and it's important to maintain humility, because anybody can stumble backwards. Even with 6 years sobriety, I could stumble backwards. And I hate when people use the expression like relapse is a part of recovery. I hate that phrase. I hate that saying. I think that is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. Like, no, relapse doesn't, it can be a part of recovery, but to say it is part of recovery makes it sound like it's excusable when it happens. And I don't want there to be excuses for myself. If somebody else needs that to be a part of their everyday verbiage because it's easier for them, then that is what they need to do. But for me personally, I can't accept that relapse is a part of recovery. I cannot. So, I'm not saying anybody shouldn't have, whatever feelings they have about that. But for me personally, I cannot feel like relapse is a part of recovery. It would be an excuse for me. But I got a really nice reminder of what being in early sobriety was like, and a pleasant reminder too. One, I have to give props to my friend Noelle, and without sharing all of her business, because it's not my business to share, she has a very massive milestone coming up next month. And it's a huge step in her recovery that I think she 100% needs props for. I'm giving it to you now. Noelle, you're amazing. And keep working at it. And just like we say, it works if you work it, right? Well, so I ran into a person at the pet store, actually. We were going to get Beans some eardrops, and his ears have been better than what they were. But we needed to make sure we still had, ear wipes and ear wash on hand for him, just in case, it gets bad again. We have it, around the house. Well, we walk into the pet store, and there's a girl at the register, working, and I look at her and I'm like, I know her from somewhere. I don't know where I know her from. Where do I know her from? Thinking oh man, that's my menopausal brain fog messing with me, whatever. No, I'm like, God, she looks familiar. Well, we get back. I even say to Dustin, I know that girl. Where do I know that girl from? He wasn't, he didn't even look at her, so I don't think he would have known what to tell me. But we get back to, the medication-ish area at the pet store, and I'm like, oh my God, that was Lindsay. And he goes, Lindsay? Well, so back when I was in very, very rough shape in my sobriety, Lindsay was a younger than me person who was very much struggling. She, at one point, ended up losing custody of all three of her kids. She became homeless. She probably weighed 90 pounds, if that. Just looked a mess back then. And she was, when I saw her working, well, one, I hardly recognized her because she had put on weight. And now, like, I don't know, some people, like even me, when you stop with anything, really, you start to do other things like eating to kind of keep your mouth or your hands busy, right? And so, yeah, some people, we put on a little bit of weight. Me, it's more like, you know, age and menopause, whatever. But she put on some weight. And I think that's probably why I didn't recognize her, because she was probably, I don't know, regardless, she looked healthy. She looked good. And regardless of if, you know, she would have been overweight or not, didn't even matter, because the girl needed to put on some weight. Like, it was not healthy the way she had looked before. And so I said to him, like, oh my gosh, that was Lindsay. Well, we get up to the register and I was like, hey girl, how you doing? Knowing that either A, I was going to get like a, you know, she was always open with me about her use because we would run the streets together. And she said, hey, I'm doing really good. I am 20 months sober. And she looked it. Like, she looked amazing. And, you know, after losing her kids, after all these things that were not enough to get her to seek recovery, here she is on her own, because that's really what it's about. You have to make the decision on your own. It's not something that somebody can intervention you into, force you into. Like, you have to want it. She mentioned that she was graduating drug court, or that she had graduated drug court like 5 months earlier. Just really looked great and was a very nice reminder of why I stay sober and why I get sober. You know what I mean? And why it's such a gift. And if you yourself are in your struggle, in wherever you are in that journey, just know that every day is a gift. Every single day is a gift. Whether it's been a month or your 90 days or a year or 6 years, 20 years, 50 years, every day is a gift. And it's good sometimes, I think, to just even remain active enough so that you can get those success stories of other people who are in their journey too, and to see where they are. And yeah, sometimes you're going to see people fail and you're going to see people fall. But unfortunately, it's not your fight, it's theirs. You just have to be a bystander, which sucks sometimes, but it's necessary to maintaining your own sobriety. Anyways, that said, it was a really wonderful gift. A couple of things. One, I've been working very diligently this week while my father-in-law is hunting and the weather is not too hot, it's not too cold in the garage. I have been working on pens. Now, I did say that I have some show and tell for you, and I have some show and tell for you. Now, I want you to keep in mind, these that I have, all but one actually, are all owned by people. So if you are a person that I owe a pen to and you do not want to see them, then you will want to, spoiler alert, you will want to look away, or fast forward or whatever you do, because I'm going to show off what I did. I'm not going to, well, I'll go into some detail because they turned out so good, you guys, like so good. And I'm allowed to be a little proud of myself because I feel like my turning has been an evolution, and this is just like the next step in the evolutionary process of the pens that I make. Now, I don't have an Etsy shop. I don't advertise. Like, if you're somebody who sees a pen and you're like, oh my God, I need one of those, and you reach out to me either like via email or Discord, if you're on Discord, whatever it happens to be, if you want one, or there's something you want and it's a specific type of wood, or you want specific herbs or stones or whatever, like, let me know. I can work with you. Yes, they're a little expensive, but it takes a lot of work, and once I show you what I'm talking about, you'll see what I mean. Okay, so if you own a pen from me and you're expecting me to mail it out, look away. Look away. Okay, so these are the pens that I've got done. There's actually 2 more, but they're over at my in-laws' house because I have to put them through the final polishing. And these will probably get repolished as well. I also need to do a little bit of adjustment in the holes and make them just a tiny bit bigger because, let's see, do I have a tip? Hold on. Okay, so like, here's a single placer tip, and they fit like perfectly in there, but I feel like I'm nervous a little bit because I don't want to end up with them being too tight where you can't actually get a tip in there, but like, you can see it fits, right? Well, here's one that I did. Now, I don't have the descriptions with me right at the moment, but I do put stones in there. There's obviously turquoise. I believe there's also moonstone in this one. And then I put herbs as well. And those are each for something specific. But there's the wood. I love this one. This is walnut. Take these tips back out. But yeah, like, some of the tips are actually pretty tight in there, and I want to make sure to give a little bit of wiggle room because they fit, they seat beautifully, like perfectly. This one is actually looking a little bit crooked, but I might need to fix that. A little slightly crooked, but yeah, I just don't want it to be where they have to like work really hard or crack anything to get the stuff in there. This one is specific for a Cancer. That's the Cancer symbol. And this one has moonstone. I believe it has amethyst. Is there also... No, I think it's moonstone and amethyst in this one specifically. And then some herbs. There's like rose petal in there. All kinds of good stuff. Oh, there's fluorite too, because I can see some fluorite right there. And then this wood is the purple heart wood, but I need to buff it out because you can kind of see it's got like white on there. I gotta fix that. This one is not spoken for. This is for Sagittarius. And then this is mahogany. I am in love. It has orchid in there. There's moonstone. There's labradorite in this one. Like, you can see the labradorite right there too. It's got rose petal. It's like, it's beautiful. I love it so much. This one is for Aries. And it has jasper and jade. This one was done with a spalted elm. And then you can see there's a star there. Actually, these glow in the dark. I don't know if I'll be able to show you or not. Let me... maybe. Oh, this light. There we go. Look at that. It glows in the dark. In fact, oops, sorry, blind you. There's actually a few of them that do. This one does, the Cancer one does, and then this last one, which is a spalted ash, this one also glows in the dark. Now, I can see that I have some lines that I need to buff out of them, and I'll do that like as the last like go over process, but this one has obsidian, it has moonstone, and then all kinds of herbs in it. But yeah, I'll put this one through another buff just to make sure that everything looks beautiful before it goes out, so there's no white spots or anything like that. No lines or anything. But I at least wanted to show off like what I've been working on, and I'm really proud of the turns that I've been doing. Like, they're turning out really beautifully. I have a couple more, like I said, over at my in-laws, and the thing is with these, I charge $100 for them, which sounds like a lot, but when you consider, one, the amount of time, one of these takes me about 2 hours to turn. I have to be very careful, especially when you got big things like this. But the stones, this one actually has little shells in it too. And then see, I gotta buff that out too. But there's, and then the herbs, like I source a lot of things that I can, but then I have to pay for wood, like, you know, walnut or purple heartwood or mahogany are not cheap woods. And so, yeah, I spend on the materials, and so that's why they end up being a little bit expensive. But I'm so thrilled with the way that these came out. I'm excited to buff them. I'm excited to make sure that the holes are large enough, and then these will go to their new homes that they belong to. Okay, that was that. I hope you enjoyed it. Oh my God, I enjoyed making them so much. So much. I'll open a new square. Now, I've got a funny story to tell you. And honestly, if I had not been like having a conversation with somebody when it happened, I wouldn't have believed somebody if they told me this story. So when I mentioned earlier that I live in maybe not like the best neighborhood in my city, I live in a very old neighborhood. In the city that I live in, it's actually, well, the park that is down the street from me, I gotta throw this out. This release paper is ripping. Down the street from me in the park, it was actually a town square for a town that became incorporated into the city that I live. So it's actually like no longer that town, it's part of the city. And the house that I live in was built in 1900 and would have been where like working class people lived, or even in some instances like farmhands or families who worked for farmers or whatever. And I gotta get a drink. So because the house is older, the neighborhood is older, the homes in the neighborhood are older, that just what ends up happening in older neighborhoods that are maybe not taken as good of care of, especially because at one point there was kind of a slumlord, to be honest. Like it's an accurate phrasing for this dude who owned a lot of the properties down here. He would charge exorbitant rent to people. Actually, there were articles nationwide when because he got into a bunch of trouble. He had actually been harassing and assaulting the women who were his tenants. My sister was one of his tenants. She was never assaulted, but he would proposition them to exchange certain things for rent, and just a gross human being. He ended up with like a whole ass class action suit against him, rightfully so. And in order to pay for a lot of his legal fees, he ended up deciding to evict like 100 families, and then he used the money that he made selling the properties to pay for all of his legal fees. And just a garbage human. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. He's a garbage human. And when he sold a lot of the properties down in my neighborhood, honestly, like, property values went up, because then, you know, families were able to buy these homes, or in some cases, other slumlords, sorry, I gotta move a cord, other slumlords picked up the properties, and then at least they turned them around. Like, a lot of the places that he had owned ended up being condemned. They believed that there was some corruption happening with the city inspector, who was very clearly not doing his job, because, like, my sister's place, even, she had a dirt floor basement, more like a crawl space basement, which is not technically up to code. She had mice and roaches, like, bad stuff. Well, so he ends up losing all the properties. He lost a lot of the cases as far as his assaults and or propositions, etc. His poor behavior as a landlord, we'll leave it at that. So a lot of the properties sold, and the neighborhood is still, it's recovering, but it is a lower income neighborhood. I work around a lot, or I live around a lot of working class people, you know, lower class people, and it shows sometimes in the way that people can behave in the neighborhood, what have you. And oftentimes we'll end up with, you know, like, I live on a 5 points, meaning there's a main thoroughfare, but then off of this main thoroughfare, there's a cross street that goes this way, and then there's another street that goes this way. So there's actually, it's a 5 point. Well, it's an uncontrolled intersection too, which leads to a lot of interesting accidents when people don't yield, not realizing that everyone is technically supposed to yield at this intersection. They don't, but what can you do? Well, so often what'll happen is, if somebody is misbehaving in the neighborhood and the police are looking for somebody, they employ a lot of different methods. Like, a few months back, and this is pertinent to the story, a few months back in the summer sometime, Dustin had gotten up early for work, and he was doing something in the kitchen, and he thought that he heard somebody in the backyard. It was still dark out when he got up, but he thought he heard somebody in the backyard. Well, the police park, when they like close down the neighborhood and they're looking for somebody, they typically will park, boom, right in the middle of our 5 point intersection, and then they'll hit, like, basically every block. There'll be a cop car at every block, kind of, they call it like a blue blanket, where they blue blanket the neighborhood and kind of keep everything closed down. They can see who comes in and out. They can stop cars if they need to, whatever. Well, he noticed that a police officer parked in the middle of the 5 points with his lights on, and he got into his trunk and got out a drone. And turned out that there was somebody that they were trying to find. He had run through our backyard, and our backyard area is actually a lot for an old house that used to be there, which I don't know how it ever fit. Must have been a tic-tac home. But anyways, he had gone into our yard, in the backyard, and along both sides of the backyard fence, we have raspberries, like big raspberry bushes, and then fences. Well, I'm guessing he didn't know there were raspberries and a fence, because Dustin, what he probably heard was the guy like running into the raspberry bush, which I'm sure he got caught up in because it was summer, and then hitting the fence. Because when they sent the drone up, they found him in our neighbor's backyard, like hiding under a trampoline. Anyway, crazy stuff happens in my neighborhood all the time. And so often when we see or hear things, we just kind of blow it off. No big deal, whatever. Well, after I finish with a square, anytime I finish a square, I get up and I do a lap around the block. It's just a thing that I've been doing for a long time, pretty much since I stopped smoking, actually. And it's also good because I like to get up and move. I don't like to be stagnant. I don't like to sit here for hours and hours on end and then not move anywhere. And so I was on a chat, actually, I was on a chat with a couple of friends, Abby and Noelle, and they were working on their diamond paint along. They're doing like a buddy diamond paint along. And we just happened to be chatting while they were, I think they were kidding up, actually, both of them. Or something. Either way, doesn't matter. We're chatting. And I get up and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go for my walk. Well, I get out and I walk basically the same 2 blocks. I'm gonna draw a picture. I walk basically the same 2 blocks when it's like a 2 block radius. Whenever, let me get paper. I walk the same 2 blocks. My house is here, okay, and then down this, because I live on a corner, right? So then I go to the end of this first block, right? And then I turn, and then there's a main street right here. It's a big main street. And then I cross the main street, and I go down another block. I turn, and then I turn back up on my block, cross the main street, and come to my house. Now, my house is here on the corner, right? And there's a fence right here. I usually will go into my backyard and into my side door where I park our cars. Okay, so I get from my house, I'm going down the street, I get to the corner and I turn. I notice before I get like to this main street, I notice up in the sky, there's flashing, green and red lights flashing. And as I told you before, like we've seen the police with drones down here. So I immediately assumed it was a drone because it was hovering. It wasn't going anywhere. At first I was like, UFO? No, not UFO. It's a drone. Well, I was telling Abby and Noelle, like, oh, I think I see a drone. Well, I get down to this corner down here after I cross the main street and I'm watching the drone. It's like hovering over here. I get to this corner and I see down the street this way that there's a police officer parked there. And I was like, oh, that must be where he's parked. And maybe he's doing a drill or something. Like it's possible he's just sitting there, like test flight or whatever, and just practicing sitting in his car. Well, I realize that as I make it to this corner down here, now the drone is flying toward me. And I was like, oh, maybe it's, I don't know. It didn't seem like it was following me. It just seemed like it was doing like a block to block search. So like it was 2 blocks down this way hovering, and then it came a block closer and it was hovering. So it was like a block away from me. Well, then I realize at this point I'm wearing a dark hoodie and I have my headphones on. I had my phone in my hand, but I had a dark hoodie on and my hood was up. So I was like, well, let me not look suspicious. And I took my hood down because I know they have cameras on the drone. So I'm like, if they can see me, then they can see like I'm just a chick walking around. I walk the same 2 block radius like almost every 4 hours, right? So I'm like, I'll just take my hood down. That way, you know, I don't look suspicious like I'm being weird or anything like that. Take my hood down. Okay, I get to this corner over here, and now the drone is hovering like on this block that I was just on, right there. And I was like, I tell them, I think this drone might be following me. They're like, is it following you? I take my phone, because I was on Discord, and I point it up, and I turn the camera on, and they can see the flashing light from the drone. And they're like, oh my God, it is a drone. I was like, yeah, I think it's following me. So I start to head back home. I'm like, okay, I don't know if they're looking for somebody. I don't know if there's somebody out running around or whatever. Let me get my ass home. So if there is somebody out that they're looking for, I'm not in their way. I'm not bothering anything, whatever. Well, I continue on my way home, and I'm still chatting with them. They're like, is it still following you? I'm like, it appears to still be following me, because then I start crossing the main street, and it moves from here to like me. It's like over here now. And I'm like, yeah, it sure does look to be following me. And I make it, at this point, I had my hands in my pockets because it was cold. It was like 45 degrees or something. And my hands are chilly, so got my hands in my pocket. And when I put my hand in my pocket, in my left pocket, I noticed I had like an old cigarette butt in my pocket. Well, before I like make my way into my backyard, I realize I'm going to look really weird doing what I normally do, which is cutting into my own yard into the dark and then going into my side door. So I stop. First, the cigarette butt, the old cigarette butt I had in my pocket, I flick it into the street, and then I wave at the camera, like I'm waving up at the drone so it sees me. And I'm like sort of saying like, hey, I'm going into my house. Well, Ace was up, and he was just downstairs, you know, doing whatever on the computer or whatever on Discord himself. And I come in the house, and I'm like, I think I was just followed around by a drone, a police drone. He's like, what? I was like, yeah, I don't know. It followed me around the 2 blocks that I went, and then came down the street. I waved at it. I came into the house. I would say 5 minutes later, 5. All of a sudden now there's a police officer parked out in this 5 points. There's a police officer parked right here. He's pointed at my house with his car. His lights are shining into my windows at my house. Ace gets up. I noticed it was there, but I didn't pay much attention to it. But Ace gets up and he taps the table, because I was on a call, right? He taps the table and he's like, there's cops outside. And I was like, yeah, they're probably, I mean, I'm assuming they had the drone up because they were looking for somebody. Well, then I get up and I look out my window, and I see there's a cop parked in the middle of the street right here. And down this block, this way, there's another one parked at the end of the block here. Now, I couldn't see behind me very well, but at this main street right here, there was a cop parked there too. And I was like, okay, maybe they found who they're looking for, or I don't know what they're doing. So I sit back down, I go about my business, and I'm diamond painting, right? So I'm like, well, I wasn't doing anything wrong. Well, then 5 minutes after the police are parked out in front of the house, the dogs boof a little bit, and Ace goes, I think somebody's knocking on the door. And they didn't knock on my front door. Like, I have 2 porches. I have a porch on a big porch on this side of the house, which is like our 3-season porch. We don't really go out that door. We don't use that door. Like, it's just a porch. This is a littler porch, but that's like my front door where my door number is, because this is the street technically that my address is on. And then there's the side door where we park our cars, which just goes right into the house. Well, they were knocking on the back door where I entered my home. And I go out my front door and I'm like kind of peeking around the corner and I'm like, hello? You know, like, anybody there? Hello? Well, the officer, and I recognized this officer, I'd seen him before. He comes from like behind my car and he's like, hi, were you the one that was walking? And I said, yeah, I waved at your camera. And he goes, oh, what did you throw into the street? And I was like, a cigarette butt that I had in my pocket? And he goes, oh, okay. Well, thank you. I was like, all right. And I come back in the house, and within 5 minutes, all the cops are gone. So I don't know if all the cops were there for me. If I turned like a routine, just drone flight training exercise into a further exercise or what. But all of a sudden, I was surrounded by police and in some sort of trouble for walking and flicking a cigarette into the road. I don't know. It was a cigarette butt. I'm like, am I about to get a littering ticket? Like, what's happening right now? And honestly, okay, now if I was going to be a criminal, how stupid would I be, first of all, to take my hood off, to show my face, right, to make sure that they saw my face, to wave at the camera, and to throw something into the street. If I was carrying something illegal, why would I throw it into the street in full view of a camera? I don't know. Maybe they encounter really stupid criminals. It's very possible. I mean, it's not like I live in LA or something where they make smart criminals. They're pretty stupid around here. But yeah, so I went from just going for a walk to apparently being a wanted criminal in my home. What? Okay, cool. But yeah, that was fun and interesting. And I was telling Abby and Noelle, like, man, am I glad you were here to hear all of that, because I don't think anybody would believe me. I mean, I've been stopped in the street by a gay person who wouldn't let me go home, made me walk them to their house, wouldn't let me leave, tried to get me to go in their house, like fully intoxicated gay person, which was very friendly, by the way. But I was on a call when that happened, and then on a call when this drone found me. It's like, I swear, if I didn't have people on those calls, like, it would seem pretty unbelievable that this sort of stuff happens to me. But that's the neighborhood I live in, I guess. I don't know. It was fun. It was fun. And I knew I wasn't in any trouble. I didn't do anything wrong. So I was just like, if you look at your record, I'm usually the one calling the police for something. Like, people being, you know, idiots or just whatever. Like, I'm the one who's calling the cops most of the time. But I don't know. I don't know how they look into that stuff. If they look into that stuff, like, on a certain address. Also, if I was a hardened criminal and I was doing something stupid, would I walk into my own house? Like, you think I would try to lose the drone? I did say something about, oh, maybe I should be real stupid and like look all sneaky and suspicious when I go into my own house, like run into my own backyard. But I was like, no, I'm not going to give him a reason. And not knowing I had already given him a reason by flicking an old cigarette butt into the streets. I was like, oops. Oh, well. Anyway, so yeah, that was my week, guys. How was yours? Did you keep busy this week? Were you productive? Did you do anything creative or fun and interesting? I've been watching a new YouTube program, I guess. I don't remember what in the heck it's called. I think it's called the Forgiveness Project. I don't know. It's this guy who he gets people who are from like two completely different walks of life together. Like, one was a MAGA mom versus a transgendered woman. And then another one that I watched recently was like, excuse me, a Proud Boy versus a far left liberal or whatever. And he works to get these people to see the other person's point of view, regardless of, you know, whether they agree with the point of view or not. They just want, he's trying to, I think it's, maybe he's the peacemaker. Is that the name of it? The peacemaker? That could be it. I'll have to look and tell you the next time, because it's actually really fascinating. And I love the idea of just getting people together for discourse. I mentioned it earlier, like it's important that we speak to each other like human beings, that we see each other's points of view, and that we try our best to put ourselves into somebody else's shoes, because we're often a whole lot more similar than we are different. Even if our viewpoints might be different sometimes, I think that we can find common ground in every way possible. It just starts with a good conversation. And so I think he's called The Peacemaker. It's on YouTube. If you really want to know like what it's called and you really want the recommendation, it sounded interesting, put something down in the comments and I'll reply with the actual name, so I don't have to go try and find it right this minute. But anyway, that's been my week. Let me grab the tarot cards so I can wrap this up. I'm gonna cover up my square here. Maybe I have to cover up my square here. I'm leaving a little bit exposed. That's okay. All right, tarot cards. They've already been shuffled, so let's see what we've got here. Are there boobs? No boobs. The Bodacious Bodoc. He looks sneaky. He looks mischievous. He looks like I did the other night when I was being followed around by a drone. Okay, the Bodacious Bodoc, 59. Meddling, tampering, sabotage, helpful fixing, and order are the key words. Okay. It says the Bodoc, or old man in Scots Gaelic, means well. He likes to fix things, quote, fix things. He drops down chimneys at night and tidies up for you. If you don't have a chimney, he'll find an other way in. You left a stack of papers on your desk, he'll file them for you, probably in someone else's desk. Okay. It says, oh, someone somewhere is meddling uninvited in the issue. It may be you, it may be someone else. See if you can work out who it is and begin to untangle the messy web they have woven of confusion and disorder and misunderstanding. So much worse than our own natural disorder. It will take great firmness to get this person to keep his sticky fingers out of your affairs, or you to keep yours out of the affairs of others. The amount of tact you use in sorting this out is up to you, but the Bodoc type person doesn't usually notice hints. Remember, whoever it is says they mean well. They may even believe that. It's very hard to believe that the Bodoc's bad results are always, quote, just an accident, as he insists. He may believe this, but we don't have to. The word sabotage comes to mind. If you don't want the Bodoc hanging around looking for ways to help, make sure you don't leave things in the wrong place or dangle any loose ends. He might find some bodacious things to do with them. Ooh. So watching for sabotage, you could be the saboteur. I think sometimes I can be a meddler. I'm not going to lie. I can meddle in things, get my nose in business where it doesn't belong. And I think I do often mean well, even if I really have zero business putting my nose in. I don't know if you're the same, but I don't think I've done that lately. I mean, would I know if I had? I'm not really sure. But, if you're the type of person who meddles, maybe don't meddle as much. Maybe just see that people don't always need or want our help. Or maybe you need to be watching for somebody who is putting their nose in business that doesn't belong, which for me is probably the case. Almost dropped my pen. As I'm like sitting here thinking on it, yeah, I probably have somebody in my life that is meddling and doesn't need to, or just there to agitate. An agitator, you know what I mean? I feel like they just exist in our lives, and we have to learn how we want to deal with them, if we want to deal with them. So watch out for a saboteur, even if it's yourself. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you. I hope you enjoyed the visit. I know I always do. And let me know down in the comments what you're up to, what your week been like. And I'm sorry I missed my lives this week. There was a lot going on. Pens, you know, more to go. But that's all I have for you. I hope that I see you again soon. And as ever, I hope that wherever you are in this great, big, wide, wonderful world of ours, that you're having a wonderful morning, evening, or afternoon, whatever time it is, wherever you are. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.